Well, welcome back to another one of our Bible studies. We are continuing with the Psalms, and today we're going to be looking at Psalm 23, probably the most beloved psalm of all. But we're not going to try to cover the whole thing in one of these short lessons. We're going to break it up into two lessons. So we'll take the first part today, obviously, and then the second part next week. So follow along as I read. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Well, of course, as you can see below, we're dealing with sheep and shepherd. And for many of us who have not grown up on a farm or live in climates where sheep do not thrive, we may not know as much about them. A lot of you probably know quite a bit about sheep. But one of the things that we know is sheep are, frankly, not very smart. They're kind of a dumb animal, and they have almost no natural defenses. They don't have horns. They can't run fast. They they don't have poison like some snakes do or lizards. They're almost as vulnerable an animal as ever God created. Now, they're of course quite valuable, and were valuable especially to the people of Israel. First of all, they thrived uh, pretty much in that climate where they lived. They provided meat, which is very important, that source of protein, and of course the wool, which they used for their clothing and to trade, so they'd have some income for their country. So and of course later on, when once God set up the sacrificial system, the sheep were the favorite animal for the major sacrifices. So they played a big part in the land of in history of Israel, and it's not surprising that David, who had been a shepherd, when he was thinking about how to talk about the Lord, he compared himself through the psalm to being one of the sheep, and the kind oversight and guidance and protection that came with the shepherd. So we'll just kind of look at this and just keep that in mind about those characteristics about the sheep. He says, first of all, the Lord is my shepherd, and the first thing we note right away is he says, my shepherd. That talks about a personal and intimate relationship. He's not somebody else's shepherd. He's my shepherd. And interesting, when David was looking for a way to describe the Lord, he did not call him, at this point anyway, his king or his deliverer. In this psalm, he does not call him a shield or a high tower, as he does in other places, but instead uses the figure of a gentle shepherd. It's a lovely, lovely picture. He would remember the times when a sheep was injured, or there was a lamb who couldn't quite keep up, and he would have picked that lamb up and held the lamb for a time in his arms and cuddled it and helped it along. And so that idea that the Lord, embraces us in his love, it's a beautiful thought. Uh, and he would know that, again, because the sheep are so willful, and they'll go their own way, even though they have no sense of direction, and they'll get themselves into all sorts of trouble. But the shepherd brings them back onto the right path. And so that's another thing when he says, the Lord is my shepherd. He says, I lack nothing. And really, we have all we need in the Lord. A lot of times we think we need a lot of other things, but really all of our sufficiency is in the Lord. We think about these sheep, and one of the things the shepherd had to do was take them to places that would be for their benefit. For example, water. And again, remember, Israel is a very arid country, so the sources of water are limited. And so again, the sheep don't have a way of finding that much on their own, so the shepherd would take them there. Now, sometimes, of course, they could get a little bit of dew off the grass, that would be helpful to them. Sometimes there were wells where there was water, but again, the shepherd had to be the one to get the water out of the well for them. But of course, better yet were the springs of water, because it was fresh and cool, and he would take them there. So, we think of that song that's really based on this psalm. He leadeth me, oh blessed thought, or words with heavenly comfort fraught. Where'er I go, where'er I do, still 'tis God's hands that leadeth me. Well, I should say that's whatever I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. Well, he says that he makes me to lie down in green pastures. We just kind of talked about he leads me beside quiet waters. Then he says he refreshes my soul. We need to be refreshed, don't we? We need to be restored. This old world will get you down. It'll wear you out. It'll make you more tired than you think you can ever be, till it's hard to even think about taking another step. But the Lord refreshes our soul. And we are restored. And he said he guides me along the right path, along with that whole idea for his name's sake. And when we talk about that, we tend to get off on our own ways, and we need to be restored. We need to get back to where we belong. Well, let's talk about a couple things again with these sheep. Now, sheep like to find a place that's comfortable, and they fall asleep. Well, the problem is that they, sometimes fall asleep in the wrong places, but also they get tired. And there's a couple of reasons they get tired. In particular, they have too much wool. They have to be sheared once in a while, and they're carrying around an extra weight. And too often we're carrying around an extra weight with worldly things that we think we must have. We have to have the latest phone. We have to have a car or a better car. We have to have a job or a better job. We have to have all these things that we may have enough for ourselves right now, but we feel we must have these things. And that can be like the extra wool on the sheep that weigh us down and tire us out. The other thing is, of course, frankly, the sheep get too fat. They eat too much. And the sheep won't stop eating even though they're way overweight. And that talks about not being disciplined for us. We're that way sometimes. We should stop. We should take in no more. We should, curb our behavior, and yet we don't. So, that's the shepherd. The good shepherd helps us by removing those things from us when we go to him and ask for his help. We don't lack anything because of him for our instruction about righteousness. The tendency of sheep is to stay along the same places and wear them out and eat all the grass. And when they eat grass, they pull it up by the roots. And so it's very quickly with sheep that if they are eating off the land, that they'll just strip it of all of its value. But they still want to go back to the same place, even though it doesn't feed them well. And unfortunately, we're like this. We prefer our own way. We want to do what we want. We're reminded of what Isaiah 53 says about all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone into what his own way. That's from Isaiah 53. Well, the sheep are also stubborn, and they sometimes don't like to follow. And that's why you see the shepherd with his staff, But in more modern era, not back in the days of Israel, you have a lot of times a dog that comes and nips at their heels and barks at them and keeps them in line and so on. And so we have this help from the Lord to harness us in, to keep us on the right path by sort of nipping at our heels from time to time, saying, you did wrong, you need to correct this, and you need to behave yourself better. Well, and it says that we are taken along the paths of righteousness. Again, when we go our own way, we tend to not go in the way of righteousness. We tend to go in the way of our own choosing, our own temptations, our own favorite things. He does this. Why? He does it for his name's sake. because even though we're kind of dumb like sheep, and I'm friends, we are dumb like sheep sometimes, the Lord somehow wants to be glorified through us. He wants his name to be glorified through us. And so he guides us along these paths of righteousness, not just for our sake, but for his name's sake, so that we can bring honor and glory to him. So, are you a sheep that accepts the guidance, the help, the provision of your shepherd? Are you willful? Are you going back to the old places that can't feed you anymore? If you are, then it's time to correct it. Listen to the good shepherd. He's the one who loves you the most. God bless you.